Hello, I'm Ben Wilson. I'm a lawyer practicing in Washington, D.C. I was asked to address the question, why the law for me? Well, I'm a native son of the Deep South. I grew up in the Magnolia State, Jackson, Mississippi. And I believe I was influenced to pursue the law because of the lawlessness around me. You see, even as a very young child, I wasn't aware of this, but Emmett Till was murdered in Mississippi simply for whistling at a white woman. His body thrown into a river, mutilated. His mother insisted on an open casket so people would understand this was a terrible crime and something he could not have done to himself. That same year, George Washington Lee in Humphreys County, Mississippi, was murdered while driving his car simply for the act of registering to vote, and that same fate uh, befell another gentleman in Macomb, Mississippi. 4 years later, in 1959, in Pearl River County, Mississippi, there was a fellow taken from a jail, accused of a crime he did not commit, and lynched. There was no mythical Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird armed with a rifle to protect him. Later, in the spring of my 11th year in Birmingham, Alabama, many of you may recall the hoses and the German shepherds that were turned on young black children demonstrating in a Birmingham park. This was all the action of Bull Connor, a name that will live in infamy. That summer in June of 1963, in my hometown of Jackson, Mississippi, Medgar Evers was murdered coming home late from an NAACP meeting. His assassin was 30 yards away, hidden in bushes, and the assassin would not be brought to justice for 31 years. That fall, back in Birmingham, four girls outside or in their church between Sunday school and the regular church service were murdered by a bomb. The following year, the summer of my 13th year, James Chaney of Meridian, Mickey Schwerner, and Andrew Goodman of New York were found buried ignominiously in an earthen dam. Their crime, seeking to register blacks to vote and to make them aware of their civic rights. But you see, all was not lost because there were these lawyers for whom I had great admiration. In Little Rock, there was Wiley Branton, who represented the 9 high school children who integrated Central High School in Little Rock. Further south, in 1960, there was a gentleman by the name of A.P. Turo, the only black lawyer in the state of Louisiana for 15 years. And Mr. Turo represented Dorothy Bridges, who integrated the elementary schools in New Orleans. And you know this story well because you've seen that painting by Norman Rockwell, little black girl in a pristine white dress, books and ruler in hand, a racial epitaph scrawled against a wall, an errant tomato on the ground. That was A.P. Turo. To the east, there was Fred Gray in Montgomery, Alabama, at 24, represented a 25-year-old new minister in town, Martin Luther King Jr. And to the east in Atlanta, there was Donald Hollowell, and Donald Hollowell represented Hamilton Holmes and Charlene Hunter, who integrated the University of Georgia, escorted to the registrar's office that fateful day by tall, dark, handsome Vernon Jordan. And further north in Nashville, my family eventually moved there. There was Z. Alexander Luby, and he represented the students from Fisk and from Tennessee State University who sat in at lunch counters, who challenged interstate commerce travel restrictions with the freedom rides. Among Mr. Luby's clients was Mr. Good Trouble himself, John Lewis. But unless you think I've only focused on men, I was also inspired by a woman, Constance Baker Motley. She represented James Meredith, who dared integrate the University of Mississippi. Meredith's then wife was my student teacher in the 7th grade, and I can still see his wife today and see him. But what struck me was that Mrs. Motley's courage. You see, she did what no man would dare do. I thought she must be 8 feet tall. You must imagine my great disappointment when I met her and I realized she was not tall. Uh, she was stout and she was brilliant, but she was not tall. And I learned an invaluable lesson: one, that you didn't have to be a man, and two, that you did not have to be physically impressive to make transformative change in life. Lawyers had power, I wanted to be a lawyer who used power, who used the law to change life and to make it better for others. And I hope in a small way I may have done that. Thank you.